Hello everyone, and welcome to the Good Love Podcast, a Good Love project production with your friendly neighborhood sex geek and good lover, Katrina Boots Rainsong. Here at the GLP, we strive for informed, enthusiastic consent, so this is your content warning. The Good Love Podcast is a sex and relationship education podcast directed to adult listeners. We offer playful, powerful, and positive education on sexuality, pleasure, kink, sexual health and wellness, and a slew of other grown and sexy topics. If you find any of these topics objectionable, you're welcome to skip an episode or even the whole show. If you're under 18, we recommend heading over to scarletine.com for all youth-focused sex ed needs. Now, if you're an enthusiastic yes, get comfy and enjoy the show. I knew I had to wait. She'd ordered me to practice on my own during the week. Every night, before I went to sleep, I had touched myself, thinking of her, taking myself to the very edge of release, but always slowing down to keep myself from going over the edge. A week of play, a week of pleasure, a week of touch and teasing, but no climax. By the time we finally got together, I was aching. I was desperate. But I knew that I'd be punished if I didn't wait for her to say the magic word. We'd played this game before. Enough times that I almost wondered if I even could come without her saying the word. She was relentless in her use of the wand vibe against my bound and spread body. I felt a rush and a swell between my thighs. Please, mistress, please. It almost sounded like someone else's voice, as my mind was completely focused on holding back the impending flood of sensations that was building inside. She whispered the magic word, yes. And I went over the edge, blasting off into another world. Good evening, good lovers. Once again, sliding right out of the gate, it's Thursday. We're going to do all of the things. Oh, this month, well, I should say last month, since it's the second day of a new month, has been very, very busy. And I lost my voice last week, so there was no episode. However, I'm very excited to share that I got to meet the creator of Cage Cream, one of the products I talked about in the last episode. So that was really cool. That was at Phoenix Pride, where I walked, or rather rolled, because I used my wheelchair, rolled in the parade. I helped lead a panel talking about sex work, representing SWAP, Sex Workers Outreach Project. And then I got to spend the rest of the day doing kink demos. So that was lovely and fantastic. And honestly, I'm not sure how I survived the day, because I was on my feet a lot more than I can normally handle. All I can say is the power of kink compels me. So, very glad to have survived October. And now here we are, the first Thursday of November, and I have largely taken a lazy day. I was very thrilled to do nothing today, but I was determined to make sure that I do this for you, good lovers. We want to remain consistent. So, last episode, I talked about chastity. Today, we're going to be looking at a close companion kink, one that can definitely overlap. Orgasm control. So, orgasm control is a form of power exchange in which the submissive hands over ownership and control of their orgasms to their dominant. My sub's orgasms belong to me. I decide if and when they're allowed to have one, with me, with others, or solo. In this way, every time my sub has an orgasm, even if there was someone else, they will think of me and their submission to me. There are a myriad of ways to play with orgasm control. Some are short-term, more focused on in-scene time. Others more long-term, with time between one release and another spanning days, weeks, or even longer. Just want to take a moment to thank you, good lover, for tuning in today. If something resonates with you or if you learned something new, I hope you'll share the podcast link with a friend or post it on your social media. Help others find the pod by giving the Good Love Podcast a 5-star rating and leaving a review. Thanks for helping to spread the good lovin'. Now, back to the show. So as discussed in episode 13, Pleasure and Restraint, exploring the depths and rewards of chastity fetish, chastity is a kind of long-form orgasm control or orgasm denial. In this practice, the submissive is denied orgasm or release, sometimes all sexual stimulation, for extended periods of time. Chastity can be mental, meaning that the submissive refrains from self-stimulation or orgasm by pure will, or it can be physical with the use of a cock cage or a chastity belt. Handing over a literal key to your genitals can be an intense act of submission, and being someone's key holder is a great honor and responsibility. There are many other ways to explore orgasm control. Firstly, there's just making a simple rule of asking permission. Asking permission might be considered a bit of a gateway kink of orgasm control. This is generally done by the dominant applying some kind of sexual stimulation to the submissive and requiring the sub to ask before crossing the threshold of climax. The dom may or may not give permission right away, which can lead to a very interesting, and to many of us, very amusing struggle. Asking permission can also be outside of scene, with the submissive having to ask a dominant for permission to self-pleasure. Placing such prohibitions around not entirely voluntary physical acts can also be a great setup for some punishments. Oh dear, looks like you came without permission. Time to get the flogger. Along with this comes edging and denial. Edging and denial can take the power exchange of orgasm control in a more intense or even sadistic direction. Edging is done by bringing yourself or your partner quite literally to the edge of orgasm and repeatedly backing away just before the point of no return is reached. Sometimes it's also known as surfing or peaking, but it's ramping up and slowing down the stimulation to create a delicious roller coaster ride that can end with either a truly earth-shattering orgasm or leave you weak and begging while your dom decides whether or not to allow you to finish or to just let the denial continue until the next time you play together. So how might this look in a play session? Well, first you want to set the scene, decide if you're going to use toys, what kind of toys you're going to use. Even though, because we're playing with pleasure, you might think that safe words aren't necessary, it's still a good idea. Sometimes intense edging and orgasm denial can become overwhelming if you reach a point where you are really struggling, you're holding yourself so tense that you cause your body to cramp, or you find yourself hyperventilating, these are things to look out for. You already know I'm going to say it. Lube is your friend. Keeping some lubricant handy, regardless of what kind of bits you have, especially if you're going for a longer edging session. You don't want to get raw, because then it's not going to be near as much fun. Unless that's specifically what you're going for, and you've negotiated it ahead of time, of course. Edging can also be a great solo activity, whether you're trying to build your sexual stamina or just push your limits and see how many times you can hit that cycle before you finally take the leap. You can have a lot of fun on your own with edging. But orgasm control isn't always about denial and delayed gratification. Remember, orgasm denial is its own separate thing. This is orgasm control. So it can also be an exploration in indulgence and exquisite excess. Forced or imposed orgasms will have you questioning whether there really is such a thing as too much of a good thing. With forced orgasms, instead of skirting the edges, you're going to be pushing yourself or your partner over the top, stimulating to orgasm over and over again. This can be a challenge to see how much a bottom can take, how many orgasms you can have in a certain amount of time, or it can even become a form of pain play as the nerve endings get overwhelmed. I highly recommend a wand vibe for this kind of play. Another more generous form of orgasm control is being able to train your bottom to orgasm on command. As hinted in my story in the beginning of this episode, this happens with a kind of Pavlovian style conditioning. A submissive learns to associate orgasm with their dom's voice or a specific command word. Erotic hypnosis can be a very hot and fun way to play with such behavioral conditioning. So, what kind of orgasm control intrigues you? Whatever you find yourself drawn to, examine why you want this experience. Is it to show devotion and obedience? Does the idea of riding the edge of a slow build and a big payoff excite you? Before deciding to play with orgasm control, you should negotiate what the term means to you and what type of orgasm control you want to engage in. I hope to hear from you, good lovers, in the polls and the questions on this topic. And until next time, keep on good loving.